A 23-year-old who couldn't even survive a semifinal at the Olympics just ran a number that should not exist. And it happened in a relay leg that broke a record nobody alive had ever seen broken. For 33 years, one number sat untouched in the history of track and field. Through Olympic Games, through World Championships, through every fast relay team the sport ever produced, nobody got close enough to even start a conversation. And then, in a stadium in Africa, on a Sunday afternoon, a runner who had been written off twice in the last 2 years took a baton in second place, chased down an Olympic champion, and erased history in under 43 seconds. What you are about to hear is not just a story about a fast time. It is a story about doubt, about a coaching decision that looked like a mistake the moment it was made, and about a number so strange that the man who ran it did not believe it himself. Stay with this one all the way to the end, because the way this race finished, and what happened in the tunnel right after, changes how you look at the entire result. Before we get into it, if you are into stories like this, where one performance flips an entire narrative upside down, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because we cover these moments as they happen, and you do not want to miss the next one. All right, let's get into what actually happened in Gaborone. The record had been sitting there for 33 years, since 1993. Since Michael Johnson ran a relay leg so fast that nobody in the sport seriously believed it would ever be touched. 33 years of clean finishes, World Championships, Olympic Games, the fastest men on the planet trading batons in front of the biggest crowds in the sport. And not once did anyone get close enough to make it a real conversation. Then, on a Sunday afternoon in Gaborone, Botswana, a 23-year-old from Benoni, South Africa, took the baton on the second leg of a relay final. And in the next 42 seconds, everything the 400 meters thought it knew about what was possible got rewritten. This was the Botswana World Athletics Relays 2026, and it was the first time in history this event had ever been held on African soil. The host nation, Botswana, brought everything it had to make the moment count. This was not a small regional meet you forget about by the next week. This was a global relay championship, with qualification spots for the World Championships on the line, and the fastest relay nations on the planet racing in front of a crowd that had waited years for a moment exactly like this. The men's 4x400-meter final was the very last race of the entire weekend, the closing event of the whole championship, and it delivered something absolutely nobody in that stadium walked in expecting. The name at the center of it is Lythe Pillay, 23 years old, from Benoni, South Africa. And if you've been following the South African 400-meter scene over the last few years, you already know exactly who this is. But if you're coming into this story cold, here's what you need to know about where he comes from, because it makes what happened in Gaborone even harder to believe. Pillay grew up in Benoni, just east of Johannesburg. He started running in primary school, and at first, nothing about it looked extraordinary. Then a talent scout spotted him, and that opened the door to a scholarship at King Edward VII School in Johannesburg. Under his coach, the development accelerated fast. At 15 years old, he ran 46.76 in the 400 meters. At 16, he dropped that to 46.26. Anyone watching closely could see the trajectory. By 2021, he was already at the Tokyo Olympics as part of the South African relay squad. A year later, he won gold at the World Athletics Under-20 Championships. And in 2024, he ran a personal best of 44.31, which made him the second fastest South African in 400-meter history, behind only Wade van Niekerk's world record of 43.03. So on paper, everything was lining up for him. But here's the part of the story that matters, the part that makes this whole thing so much bigger than just a fast number. His individual results at the biggest stages were not matching his potential. He got eliminated in the 400-meter semifinals at the 2024 Paris Olympics. Then he got eliminated again, same round, same result at the 2025 World Championships in Tokyo. 2 major championships. Same exit point both times. For an athlete with his profile, those 2 results created a real question that followed him all the way into 2026. Could he actually deliver when the moment was the biggest? He was still carrying that question into Gaborone, completely unanswered. Now here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part most people watching this race had no idea about until it was already happening. South Africa walked into the men's 4x400 final with a reshuffled lineup, and the decision behind it was bold, maybe even risky. One of their runners had already raced the mixed 4x400 relay the day before and sat out the men's heats entirely. So for the final, the coaching staff made a call that raised a lot of eyebrows. They pulled out the world under 2,400-meter champion, and they brought in Lythe Pillay on the second leg instead, a man who had struggled to get past the semifinals in the last two major individual championships he'd entered. Think about that for a second. You're benching a world junior champion and replacing him with a guy whose biggest recent headlines were about early exits. That's not a safe decision. That's a gamble. The opening leg went out and put South Africa in a solid position, handing the baton over in second place. Botswana, the host nation, had already grabbed an early lead with a sharp opening split from their first runner. The crowd inside Botswana National Stadium was loud before the race had even really started, and it was about to get a whole lot louder. Then Letsile Tebogo took the baton for Botswana on the second leg. If that name doesn't mean anything to you yet, here's the context. Tebogo is the Olympic 200-meter champion. He had already shown at this exact same event that he belongs in any conversation about the fastest humans currently alive. And when he took off down the back straight, the stride looked like something out of a different sport entirely. The kind of running that makes 43-second athletes look like they're standing still. At that point, Pillay was in second place. The gap to Tebogo was real, and the home crowd could see their guy flying away. Every single signal in that stadium said Botswana was about to extend the lead and turn this into a statement race in front of their own fans. And then nobody saw what came next. Pillay ran 42.66 seconds on that leg. He did not just hold the gap to Tebogo. He closed it. He caught him. And then he went past him on a leg where Tebogo himself ran 43.50. Sit with that number for a second, because it's almost hard to process. Tebogo, the Olympic 200-meter champion, ran 43.50 seconds, and still lost that leg by 0.84 seconds. The fastest 200-meter man at the Olympics got outrun by nearly a full second on a 400-meter relay leg, and the number Pillay posted doing it was 42.66. Here's why that number broke the internet. The previous fastest relay leg in 4x400 history belonged to Michael Johnson from the 1993 World Championships in Stuttgart. Johnson ran 42.94. That mark had sat completely untouched for 33 years, through every Olympic Games, every World Championship, every elite relay field the sport had produced in 3 decades. Pillay broke it by 0.28 seconds. Nobody saw that coming. Not the crowd, not the other teams, not even Pillay himself. And this is the part of the story that I think tells you everything about how unbelievable this moment actually was. When his teammate came up to him in the tunnel after the race and told him what he'd just run, Pillay's first reaction was not celebration. It was denial. He did not believe the number. He thought it had to be wrong. But here's the thing. That record-breaking split was not even the end of the race. South Africa now had the lead. The record books had a brand new name written into them. But there were still 2 legs left to run. And what happened in those final 2 legs is where this whole story gets even more complicated. So before we get to how it ended, quick reminder. If you're enjoying this breakdown, drop a comment with your prediction for what you think happens to this athlete next. Because by the end of this video, you're going to want to weigh in. Botswana had their secret weapon waiting on the anchor leg, the reigning world 400-meter champion. South Africa had their own anchor ready to answer. On the third leg, South Africa's runner held the lead against Botswana's third leg man, with Australia also closing in fast from behind. 3 teams, all within real striking distance, heading into the very last exchange of the entire championship. And then Botswana's anchor ran the leg of his life. He pulled level with South Africa's anchor inside the final 200 meters and edged away in the closing straight to win gold for the host nation in a championship record time of 2 minutes and 54.47 seconds. South Africa crossed the line in 2 minutes and 55.07 seconds, a brand new national record, and the 5th fastest relay performance in history. Australia took bronze right behind them. So in the end, South Africa left Gaborone with the silver medal, not the gold, But here's the thing. The number people are still talking about, the number that's going to find this entire championship for years, doesn't belong to the gold medal race. It belongs to that second leg, and it always will. Now here's where the story stops being about one race and starts being about the rest of this athlete's career. And this is the part you really want to pay attention to. What Pillay ran in Gaborone did something very specific to the conversation around him heading into the rest of 2026. It didn't just add a record to his name. It created a question that every serious fan of the 400 meters is now sitting with, waiting to see answered, because relay splits and individual 400-meter times are not measured the same way. There's the exchange zone. There's a running start on the incoming leg. There's the adrenaline of an entire team race happening around you. Every serious analyst in this sport has been quick to point that out, and they're right too. A 42.66 relay split does not automatically mean this guy is about to walk onto a track alone and run that exact number in an individual race. But here's what it does mean, and this is the part that's impossible to ignore. His individual personal best is 44.31. He ran 42.66 on a relay leg in a championship final against an Olympic 200-meter champion. That gap between those two numbers is not nothing. Whatever the real conversion factor turns out to be between a relay split and an individual time, the engine that produced that kind of output in a relay is the exact same engine that's going to line up for an individual 400-meter race. And that should make you genuinely curious about what comes next. Here's where the timeline gets really interesting. The World Athletics Championships are heading to Beijing in 2027, and South Africa has already qualified a stacked roster. Pillay is going to Beijing. Wade van Niekerk is going to Beijing. The South African national record holder is going to Beijing. The entire South African 400-meter program is building towards something this continent has genuinely never seen before. And the one open question hanging over all of it is simple. Is the individual version of Lythe Pillay ready to match what just happened in that relay in Gaborone? After Gaborone, the next stop on his calendar was the African Athletics Senior Championships. And right behind that, the qualifying window for Beijing opens up. Every single race from this point forward carries a completely different kind of weight than it did a month ago. Before Gaborone, he was a talented runner who kept hitting a wall at the biggest moments. After Gaborone, he is the man who holds the fastest relay split in the history of the sport, and everyone is waiting to see if that translates. So here's where we land. Lythe Pillay ran 42.66 seconds on the second leg of a relay final in Gaborone and took down a 33-year-old record that almost everyone assumed was permanently out of reach. He did it against an Olympic 200-meter champion. He did it in a championship final. And he did it as a man who had been eliminated in the semifinals of the last two major individual championships he'd entered. That combination, the pressure, the opponent, the history on the line, the personal redemption arc underneath it, is exactly why this moment is going to be talked about for a long time. But this is also exactly why the story isn't finished. It is just getting started. Because the real test isn't a relay leg anymore. The real test is one man, alone on a track, with no exchange zone and no running start, trying to prove that what happened in Gaborone wasn't a one-time freak result, but a preview of something much bigger. And that answer is coming sooner than you might think. So here's my question for you before you go. Do you think Lythe Pillay can break 40 seconds in an individual 400-meter race before the end of 2026? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. I genuinely want to read what you think. And if this story pulled you in the way it pulled me in, make sure you're subscribed, because the next time this name shows up in the headlines, you're going to want to already be following along. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.